G'day everyone and welcome to Inside Fantasy Sports Inside NBA Show. This is the pickup. Malley, you are looking fine. Talk about pickups. Do you like to be the league leader in pickups and waiver ads during the course of your weeks?
If you can't win anything else, mate, you might as well win that. I don't know if there was a category. I'm going to actually play a bit of 10 cat next year, and I'm going to put in waiver pickups, or maybe we'll play 11 cat and go trades made, because there's two categories I'm going to absolutely hammer.
God forbid you were ever in an unlimited ads league with no money. Like if you had a unlimited budget, unlimited ads, you'd just be adding a guy, dropping a guy, add a guy, drop a guy.
Yeah.
In the middle of your lunch break.
I looked at my team the other day and I saw that I only had one guy that I drafted on my squad, but so that's a little embarrassing.
Who was that guy? Who was the one guy you've still got in that squad?
I'll let you guess. He's a top prospect in the fantasy realm at the moment. He's very unique in his role. His last name barely fits on a jersey.
Last name barely fits on a jersey.
SGA. Julius Alexander. Yep, he's made it through.
Oh, look! If there's anyone to keep, it's that one. He is the MVP, and I'm punting on him for the year. We're going to talk about other MVPs. Well, maybe not the MVPs, but most valuable players to trade for. We're going to make some moves before trade deadlines in our leagues. If you're looking to make some moves, we are going to talk about where you want to look with the season about to reach its summit. We are heading in towards week 18 after this one. We're going to tell you who you should look at right after this.
Welcome to the Ultimate Super Coach and Fantasy Sports Show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Mate, I haven't spoken to you we've spoken since All-Star Weekend, but we haven't done a pod since All-Star Weekend. There was an interesting stat that I shared with Matty last night, and I know you love a nice little stat muse or a stat. How's this one? 154 combined points back in 1953 for the All-Star game. No three-point line then. But yesterday, they took 168 combined three-point attempts. That was a travesty of a game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit shocking. And, I mean, I only ever worry about the All-Star weekend to see if it has any sort of implications on fantasy. And often, obviously, unless there's an injury or someone tries to dunk over a man sitting down and completely flops, then I really don't really care for it. But today it plays in very nicely to my time to buy, so I did pay some attention to that.
Well, let's talk about the guys that you want to buy, because you think it is time to buy one participant. I should play the game. It's like, Brian, you know the answer for this one. You know where you try and make me guess a guy and you say, oh, he plays basketball. I'm like, oh, yeah, you mean that guy.
Yeah.
Well, This guy
Andrew
was
Gaze.
the punky – oh, Andrew Gaze, that's the bloke. This guy was the Punky Brewster of the slam dunk contest. Let's have a look at who you're thinking of after this.
Buy more. Sound fair enough?
Yes, indeed. It is this bloke, Jaylen Brown. You want to get on the Brown train.
Yeah, and I mean, he really did himself no favors in the in the All-Star game. He actually, to be fair, he played quite well, but he's on the social medias at the moment, and he's getting absolutely
social medias
for his egregious dunk of a man barely 5 foot sitting down in a chair, jumping over him when people are jumping a standing shack. It's absolutely lit up my Instagram and my X feeds. And strangely enough, it feeds in beautifully to my buy now on Jaylen Brown. So
talk about it.
He's on people's minds at the moment, and there's a sour taste in people's mouths. I know that the All-Star game and the dunk competition has absolutely no weighting on the fantasy realm, but if you've got someone sitting on the fence and they see that, I think they might start leaning. And he's obviously hit a flat spot. He's scoring 22 points, 5 rebounds. He's got a steal. He gets half a block. He's still some decent value. His free throws are always pretty mid, especially for a guard. With Porzingis, Horford, Derek, and Drew all sitting games, most nights he's still the second option. on a fully healthy team, I think he slips down to the third option behind Kristaps. But Boston have a fantasy-friendly playoff run, whether you're in the early rounds of the playoffs or the late round playoffs. They actually gear up quite well. So if there is a time to pick up this man, he's got his dual eligibility, which always is great when you need to make sure every one of your men is playing in the fantasy finals. You don't want to ever have guys sitting on the bench when you've got spots open in your team, in your lineup. I just think with, as I said, the sour taste that is in people's mouth at the moment, he's hit his flat spot. 3 games ago, I think he went absolutely fire. I'll have to have a little look back at his games. You might have his record there. But
I do.
His season stats are certainly more impressive than his months worth of stats, and his week before All-Star break stats were pretty flat. So,
and he's been outside the top 200. He's been outside the top 250 the last 2 weeks as well. So this is where it really is like a guy who is not a 200th best player. Like, you're right. Like, this is where if you look at the last couple of weeks as a sample size, you might be, starting to freak out a little bit with the playoffs on the horizon.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to, like we talk about every week, the fact that you're going to have to paint a bit of a narrative. You'd obviously want to have lots of conversation in the chat about how trash he is. We know that he's been punished with his left hand, dribbling. His dunk competition obviously left a lot to be desired. But I think if you push away all the dust that kind of lays on top of the man, he's still a pretty fire fantasy bloke. He fits quite nicely on a big man build, but fills your guard forward eligibility. I just think now would be a good time to pick him up. They're starting to ramp up again. They're coming into the playoffs. I'd say they're probably going to sit guys less, and he's going to get a good run coming down the stretch into what they hope to be a big, strong finals appearance for Boston. But yeah, I just think that the stars are aligned with this man a little bit. His flatness, his poor showing in the dunk competition just leaves that door open a little crack for you to make a move, and he'd be a guy I'd be looking to pick up.
But this is the thing as well. I'm not going to go out there and put a bit of a hate game on for Jaylen Brown ponying up to the dunk contest, because we've been talking about there's no superstars in the contest. There's no superstars in the contest. And this is exactly why. They go out there, they try and jump over a bloke, whether he's in a chair or not, or whatever the case may be. And then if they don't perform well, or they don't do something like Matt McClung, who's jumping over Shaquille O'Neal without any hand, like with any support, then we just give them shit, and then they don't want to do it. And then they don't, hey, I don't want that. I've got a multi-million-dollar contract. Well, he got paid on the off season. So I think the bloke's doing okay for himself, Jaylen Brown. But again, outside the top 250 the last couple of weeks, and you bang on the head. He has been shooting 545 from the free throw line for the last 2 weeks as well. So if you're an owner of him and you don't want that, you're not punting free throw percentage, you might be like, oh shit, I've got to get rid of this bloke. So that's the kind of, like, look at the builds of your opponent who owns him right now. Are they looking for a high? You can offer him, hey, mate, come on, look, he's taking 4 shots a game from the free throw line. He's lucky to hit bloody 2. Like, you'll be able to get a good return on him. And you're right, he is a little bit fluctuating, but another guy who's just known for fluctuating and vacillating between hot, and what the fuck is this guy doing in basketball is another Jaylen and another color. Did you do this on purpose? Is this a Jaylen and like, is there going to be like Jaylen football next week?
Yeah, I'm looking for another way to spell Jaylen, and I think that'll be easy to find. There's probably a lot of vowels in Jaylen that you can sub out. There's probably I's and O's that can be slipped in, and there's whites, there's blacks, there's all other sorts of colors in the NBA. So yeah, I'm sure I'll find another opportunity. But I know this one is a bit of a sore point for you, because I know that you reached the point in the fantasy realm this time last year, and you were faced with the decision whether to pick up Jalen Green or not. And I know that you even regret for making that choice.
I do, and he almost. I wanted him to get the season. I actually won a championship the year before, picking him up. I rode him on that. You know when he had that post All-Star break where he just went bonkers? And then he was like the hottest, and everyone was like, oh, this guy's fantastic. This guy's fantastic. Well, I picked him up before then. He was on the waiver wire because he was playing like trash. I actually drafted him as a late round flyer. And then he was on my team, off my team, on my team, off my team for the season, as well as many other blokes. And last year I thought, like everybody else, here's a guy who's going to be amazing. Here's a guy who's really going to just come out and just be amazing. And he wasn't. He ended up finishing the year outside the top 200 for a starter. I mean, sure, the 22 points a game were great last year, almost 4 rebounds, same amount of rebounds and assists for the guy. It looks good. But his field goal percentage being .416 will kill you. He's not an elite free throw shooter either, and he loves to get to the line. So this is where, when you've said this to me, I've got my case against him. But then I just look at him right now and why you think it's buy now, because I'd almost be selling now on him because Fred VanVleet's about to come back in the lineup. And he's been on more of a tear. In fact, in the last 2 weeks, though, he's still been outside the top 300. So tell me, sell me, sell.
Well, I'm going to start off with the fact that I was just thinking before, ironically, you were talking about 3 years ago, he had that real improvement down the stretch. And I was thinking, who was that player last year? And it was another bloody Jalen. It was Jalen Williams who did the same thing, where he came out and just kind of rocked the old fantasy Casbah and
the rookie who comes good after the All-Star break is the one you always want to keep your eye on. Get yourself a Jalen.
So look, my first line here is Emma Udoka has absolutely cracked the shits with him. In the last game, he was limited to 23 minutes. And I think this is a good jumping off point to start your negotiations on getting him onto your squad. He's definitely improved this year, I think, over last. I don't think the improvement is stark, but I think at the end of last year, he wasn't worth much at all. I remember where people were picking him up in the drafts this year, and I think even he was making it to waiver wires in some leagues with the the uncertainty in Houston at that time of the year. And now obviously we know who's who in the zoo there. But just 3 games ago, he did put up a triple-double. Like, this isn't a guy who, a good game is that far in the past. I don't think Houston are ready to call it quits on their second overall draft pick. They obviously need him to perform if they want a chance to get back in the All-Star picture. I think you've got to take stock of the fact that, as you said before, and a little bit the same with Jaylen Brown, the free throws are going to be an issue, and he is a hot and cold kind of guy, and that can be a dangerous thing, taking someone like that into the finals. But I think I've heard a lot of chat about the fact that people think that Thompson might get to stay on and possibly play the 2 alongside Fred VanVleet when Fred comes back, hopefully as soon as the All-Star break's over. I don't buy it. I think that it's too late to make a big move like that. I also don't think he'd be a very good in anywhere besides the one guard on a team. I don't think they want to play him at the 2. I just think the Houston timetable in the fantasy playoffs is pretty generous. They don't have bad weeks. I think that Jalen is a guy that you can pick up for near nothing at the moment, and I'm not thinking, I don't want people to get it twisted. I don't think he's a guy that, he's going to be a massive game changer. But I also think that he's going to be a guy that people are almost considering as a drop. And I'd like to take that chance on him and take him to the playoffs myself. But yes, it is risky. But I feel like it's low. It's high risk and low risk and high reward. Like, you're not going to have to give up a lot for him. And if you have to drop him, you drop him.
And if you're a punt field goal percentage, like, he can put a whole bunch of points and threes, and the man's never met a shot he doesn't like. So you know that he's always going to be active. He's going to be seeking out offense in bunches. And look, I do think he has improved this year. I still think he's very much he's young. You know what I mean? Like, he's definitely a work in progress. And Udoka's just cracked the shits with him. But I do think, though, that he is a guy who can be mentored by the likes of Udoka in the Houston system. And you're right, Amen Thompson is there just breathing down his neck, which also just surprises me, by the way. If they Amen so bad, but yet they gave the bag to Fred VanVleet. I would have loved to have seen these guys almost tank for a year again and run out Amen Thompson, Jalen. Like you would have just had like electric offense coming in left, right, and center. But a lot of it runs in through one of my guys who has been, I think, ice cold. And let me hit that one. Because his teammate, vicariously, when Fred VanVleet is out, the whole team needs to do more. Like he is their point guard, but as I said, a lot of it ran through Alpy and Şengün, and I do think right now is a massive buy low on Alpy. This guy was
a jersey.
I love the HDN. I couldn't find the nice one that I liked.
Plain.
I was doing this one with Jalen Green, but I couldn't get him looking at the camera. But this one.
I like that one.
Distance, you want to buy low on me? Sure. Let me just pose for the camera. Because
here I
am. My guy has been outside the top 150 in the last 2 weeks of fantasy, which seems kind of ludicrous to say that Alpy and Şengün has been outside the top 150. Like he's at one point been inside the top 30 this season, top 25. He was absolutely rolling. His blocks for the last week, I like that. He's been at 1.3. For a guy who on the year has been under 1, so I like that. His field goal percentage has been plus 500 all season long. His free throws, again, not a good free throw shooter. And I'm a guy who likes my bigs to be able to knock down a decent clip, especially with their free throw attempts a game. And Alpy and Şengün is almost at 6 free throw attempts a game, 5.4 for the season, 5.7 in the last 2 weeks. So he's getting there at least 5 times to the line. But when you're shooting 700 for the year, that's a really big swing because it's been going down. And if you look at it like this one, the past 2 months was 730, but it's hit a cliff the last month, 660, then 600 in the last 2 weeks. And in the last week before the break, he was at 530. Like that's just a decline in your free throw attempts, but he's still getting to the line the same amount of times. In his NBA career, he's only been a 7-11 and 7-15 shooter. So he's not getting any better at that, but he can bunk you down there a little bit. I was very curious to see in the last 2 weeks without Freddie there that his assists went down. So he was actually on the year averaging over 5 assists in the last month, 5.6. He's gone down in the last week and the last 2 points to 4.7, 4.3 assists, which I found curious because I thought a lot of the offense would be like, you know what, our point guard's gone. He already ran a lot of ball. He's a very good distributor. Like hats off to baby Jokic for Alpy. But this is what I like about the guy. His rebounds have been down about to 5 in the last week as well. He's been averaging 9 on the season. So this is where there's been a decline lately. And so this is where we look for this opportunity to be like, mate, Alpy not looking good. He's hit the skids. The shine is out. And you can just slide on in to a manager who might be freaking out about that and buy low on Alpy and Şengün, Malley.
Yeah, I was thinking about the fact that his assists have gone down. I think it's because, Freddie does a good job of finding him in the low post, and then he kind of does his distributing from there. So without someone being able to feed him, for him to be able to feed somebody else and pick up assists, that's where he might have kind of fallen off. And I'm just thinking about Alperen as well. He was one of the steals of the draft, I feel like, for me this year. It was a big gamble when we think back not so long ago to the start of the fantasy season. And we didn't know what his role was going to be. He got absolutely shafted the year before. And with Udoka coming in, we weren't quite sure how he was going to get played. I ended up picking him up late. I ended up getting Sabonis, and then I got the both of them when Sabonis wasn't doing as well as he is now, and traded them for I traded them both for Embiid, which now hasn't turned out to be a fantastic trade. All things are, playing out as they did. And
hindsight's 20th.
Yeah. But just the value that he was at that stage for me to be able to make moves like that. I agree. I think there's more for him. I think there's more for him at the end of this season. I don't know what's going to happen there next year. I fear that's the Jalen Green situation. We're not worried about next season yet. But I wouldn't be picking him up in any sort of redraft league or any kind of keeper league. I don't like his future outside of the end of this season, to be fair. But Alperen, I do.
Yeah, Alpy and Şengün I like a lot. And this is the thing with Jalen Green, just to see Jalen Green not make progress? It just seems weird because he has the tools. Like, he's explosive as anything. Like, he's 6'4". He plays bigger than his body on the court, which reminds me of a lot like a more dynamic Russell Westbrook for this era. Like a young Russell Westbrook, very explosive, very tight, just doesn't like to play make. He loves to rebound. I just don't know what it is about him. But Şengün, I know, has all the tools and gets better and better. And I just looked it up in one of my friends and family leagues. He went 65th in a draft because people were high on him because centers went off the board, pretty early. And then there was this next phase of centers. Like, we know that we're in drafts. Like, there's these tiers. And after the 50s, you just need to start looking around who's there because you start to bunker down by your drowns, and that's a 12-team league. But he's 55th on the season, so he's returned a round of value from there. But it's just the buy low window right now on him. Conversely, though, I do have a bit of a guy who is absolutely hot right now.
Pull over by this hot guy and let me out.
And I did want to talk about the tale of two centers, and this one is a popular name, and his name is back in the good graces after he hit the rookie wall. So there was a buy low, and so this is where you can sell high because this is the fantasy pendulum, and this is what we used to as managers. If we get tied to one thing too much, like if we get tied to one player when their position is, and we just automatically always see them as this. Like, I just see him as a top 30 guy. But you're not willing to waver waver like 5 positions to a 25th or a 35th player to look at a return, then you pretty much can be dead to rights sometimes. But there's players you love. And when he was a buy low, you best believe in the leagues that I own, Chet, I was getting offers for him because this is the kind of asset that Chet Holmgren is. Because there will be games that are down because he's young. It's his first full year in the NBA. And the man is a top 20 fucking player. And so this is where I'm just telling a lot of people my strategy. In fact, I'm going to join a public league where nobody knows that I am next year. Because if I get a top 3 pick next year, I'm taking Wemby. And best believe if Chet Holmgren is around on the turn at 22 or 21, 23, 24, you best believe I'm partnering those two bad boys up and then just hitting an elite point scorer back on the next run around the rim, just to offset those two guys. Because in the last 2 weeks, Chet has been the 6th best player in fantasy. And he doesn't do it on 20-point plus games, which is nuts. Because a lot of if you look at the top ranked players, they're all these guys who get 20 points plus whatever. Well, he's doing it on the shooting has come back. He's on 16.7 points, 7 rebounds a game, 2 assists, 1.5 steals, and 3 blocks. That's 4.5 stocks a game in the last 2 weeks. 550 from the floor, 800 from the line. In the last week, he's been 540 and 900 from the line. He has been a top 20 player all season. Over the last couple of months, he had some regression. He's come back in. But when he is looking like in the last 2 weeks, the 6th best player and playing this well, it's where you can confidently say it's sell high because you could get another top 20 player back and one. Who is your worst player? Could you get a top 20 player and a top 40 player back for him? Maybe. How good are you negotiating? And I know that you love a 2-for-1 special, Malley. I know that you were a 2-for-1 special. And because you say, what else can you do? Exactly right. So this is a 2-for-1 special. Like if you've got who's your worst bloke, dump them off. Who's your waiver guy? Who's one of your 2 waiver guys? This is where you can sell high on Chet Holmgren, especially if you're the owner out there who loves the bloke because you're an OKC fan. Stuff off with your homers for once. Look at your season. It's coming down to brass knobs and taxes, they say. But the big thing is this: if you have him and you are a manager who is punting blocks, lean into it, baby. Lean into it. Get someone back who fits your build and one for him. Yeah, he boys them, but you're going to probably lose them anyway if he's your only block specialist. So capitalize. And so Chet Holmgren for me, mate, hands down, is my sell high target.
Yeah, and I mean, just the fact that he's been able to do this with someone who's being considered potentially an MVP of the season, and an absolute rocket of a sophomore in Jalen Williams, I think that's pretty impressive that he's come out here and had the season he's had. And unfortunately, he's debuted a season too late. If he would have gone last year, he probably would have got that Rookie of the Year, hands down.
100%.
But yes, unfortunately, I mean, it's good to see him out here. He's probably not going to win it. I think Wemby's going to take the title.
In my perfect world, they tie. In my perfect world, there is a tie to honor both of these guys as Rookie of the Year.
Yep. He's going to win plenty of accolades anyway, so this will might be the one that gets away, but he's not going to miss many of them.
Mate, he's both of him and Wemby. Mate, we talked about stacks at the beginning of the year, and I said one of the ones that I was absolutely fascinated by was the OKC stack. Again, best believe if I could pick up Shea and Chet and Jalen Williams next year, I think Giddey has fallen off the radars a lot this year, so I think he's going to drop in value. He's really copped it this year a lot. So I think there might be some back-end value and just with a bit of looking down the pipeline, just people just sliding on Josh Giddey and being able to pick him up late in drafts next year could be really good for your assist. And obviously he's not the team leader in rebounds anymore, but just his playmaking with those guys is elite. But mate, you've got a couple of other guys. I think it's time to do we're talking about guys to sell high on. Well, who do you think it is time to look for?
Sell.
Can I take you to the nation's capital?
Yeah, let's head to the. I don't know. I don't know anything about Washington. Is it now? I'm confused. Is it Washington and Washington DC always throw me out? I need to learn my American geography a little better. So this is Washington DC.
State of Washington.
DC slapped all of their
DC is the
jersey.
City? Washington is the state. Is it Washington's? Oh God, I'm not American.
Yeah, we're going to be upsetting somebody, some listener, somebody.
I'm sorry to all of our listeners, viewers in Washington and the Washington DC area, especially you, Joe.
And to be fair, everything I know about American geography I've learnt from watching and discussing the NBA. So it's not going to be all flash, but I owe a lot of my geographical knowledge of the United States to it.
I sprinkled a bit of that with National Treasure, thanks to Nick Cage. I've managed to know where Philadelphia is in relation to how quick you can get there to find out the Liberty Bell.
You find knowledge in the most unlikely places. And speaking of an unlikely hero, it's Denny Advier at the moment in Washington, as we saw on our little icon before. I think I can summarize him, and it's just not going to keep happening. Like even if they sit Kuz down the stretch, or maybe a Tyus or a Poole, he just isn't this guy. Like, it's been a really wonderful last 4 games, but
hasn't it been his time to shine? It's been his time to shine, hasn't it?
And if you own him, you've enjoyed that, and there might be a couple more good games to come, and you might lose a little bit of value in the very short term. I'm thinking a week, and then I don't think he's going to be on anyone's lips anymore. And you probably picked him up as a waiver pickup, and he's turned into one of those guys that's pushed himself up a notch on your team, and you've managed to just go, well, he's not my in and out guy anymore. He's going to be a bit of a regular fixture. His 43-point, 15 rebound game definitely would be what's higher than a high watermark, whatever that is. Yeah,
the ocean.
That's him. Yeah, maybe the mist that rises off the ocean. That's probably kind of the level he's in. He's in the bloody stratosphere, mate.
That was a waiver line of the day. If you bought him in one of those points leagues, and you're doing it for the most of the day, and you can only spend $20, who's going to get the most points?
Yeah.
And Denny Advier is in that $1 or $2 bracket bloke. Jesus, Mother Mary and Joseph, you earned a lot that day.
Yeah, you got change back from your $2, but I think when you're starting to sell him, one of the things that I'll be trying to advertise is that he comes with an 11-game final schedule. If you start on the 4th of March, which I do in one of my leagues, so I've got one more round to go before the playoff begins. The 11-game schedule is pretty tasty. He might still have value then. I don't want to rely on that. I don't know what Washington are going to do and who they're going to sit. But I think even best case scenario, they sit Kuz, they sit either Tyus or they sit Poole. He's just still not going to do what he's going to do. His shooting's been like absolutely through the roof at the moment. He can get a lot of rebounds. 15 is obviously pretty crazy, and he'd be happy that Gafford isn't there, working the rebounds. Even though he's still probably going to get hustled on the defensive end for rebounds. As it kind of stands at the moment. But I think that if you want to get prospective buyers for Denny, I'll be talking about the fact that he's been handed the keys to the Washington Castle, and I'll be getting him off my hands ASAP. I just think that you've enjoyed a week that was, or nearly 2 weeks of really great value. Remember as well, I think it was 4 games ago, he played 2 20-minute games as well. Like, it's not like he's been climbing. He's been. They just have been dicking him around all season. Like, he gets these weeks where he plays 30-minute plus games, and then without any real reasoning, with people in or out or otherwise, he just goes back and sits, plays 20-minute games for a couple, and then, I mean, we talked about, and I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself because I guess it's the exact same situation with Jalen Green, but you don't want to take someone into the finals who is going to play you like this. Like, you don't want it to come down to the last day of one of your finals and go, oh my God, is it a Danny 20-minute day, or is it a Danny, 37-minute day?
It will be a Danny 20-minute day.
What do you think about him? Am I on the money here?
I think you're paying on the money. I think if you're a Denny Advia owner, you are just living the life fantastic. And I think we're going to see some more Bilal Coulibaly, and then put some more like some more stock and trade basically into who's in their team and the line. Like, it's been a fun ride. I can't see them just hitching like all their carts to it. I can't. I just don't think. I don't think the realm exists where Denny Advia is a top. I have to look up what he's been the last couple of weeks, but I think he's almost been inside the top 30, top 40. I just
not in this timeline.
Not in this timeline. Maybe an alternate timeline. Maybe he's like a secret cameo in the new Deadpool film where he's just messed around with the timeline too much. And Denny Advia is the new Luca. He's the international superstar that we all love. I don't know what kind of tampering is going on.
If Danny's not going to bed each night before he's got his little spinning top out, I reckon he spins that every night before he goes to bed, like Inception, just to see if this is reality or if it's a fantasy for him,
or if it's just going to continue to go. If it's going to go, it's going to go, and when it's going to fall.
No, he's bringing a whole new meaning to fantasy basketball,
mate. He really is. He is not long for these lofty heights of fantasy. But, mate, let's be honest. Someone who was longed for the lofty heights of fantasy was one of his other teammates, funnily enough, in Washington this year. Daniel Gafford was a darling in Washington this year. He was the only big man, only reliable option there. Like, then he's shipped off. He's about to share it with Derek Lively, who, again, everyone in fantasy land was enamored by this guy. He comes in, he plays hard, he fits the system. He's an above-the-rim threat. But Denny Advia, I said this the other day, is he now, not Denny Advia, Daniel Gafford. Is Daniel Gafford now the best per 36 player in the NBA? Because this man, you also think it is time to sell now because he has been a freaking machine.
Yeah, he's definitely grabbed the bull by the horns, and he's loving playing alongside
or the Maverick
Luka
by the mane, or he's grabbed the Maverick by the mane.
Yeah, grabbed it by the whatever parts horses have. I don't know. I'm not a big horse man. But
it's a mane. It's a mane, Malley. It's a mane.
Yeah, it is a mane. There you go. He's the main man. Look, there's also another two centers on this team. They really have a 4-center rotation at the moment. So it's an absolute log jam. And I mean, 4.5 if you want to call PJ Washington Jr. a center, which he has been known to play in the past. I just think that he's been playing these games of about 20 minutes, but somehow, and probably through the grace of our Lord and Savior, Luka Doncic, he's absolutely gone bananas. He's being fed everything. He's been getting rebounds. He's lost 4 minutes since he's been playing over in Dallas to what he was averaging over in Washington. But he's gone up in points, just a couple. And he's up 5 boards on his average from his time in Washington as well. I just think it's not going to stick. he's in with 2 big-time rebounding. I mean, even the rebounds itself aren't going to stick. He's in with Luka and he's in with Kyrie, who don't mind pulling down boards themselves and starting fast breaks. I just think the numbers look very delicious since he's moved to Dallas, but the minutes that he's getting, something's got to give. He's not going to be able to keep putting up these numbers in the mid-20s. I don't feel like they're going to up his playing time. If anything, I think it's going to settle or maybe even decline. And unless he's a superhuman, he's not going to be able to do what he's been able to do in his 4 games that he's played so far over in Dallas. I just think with the points and the rebounds and the couple of blocks that he's been getting, I think this should be a pretty easy sell. But obviously, people aren't fools and they can see what his minutes are doing and understand that, yes, there's plenty of centers for them to play over in Dallas. So I'd still be trying to sell him because I just don't think things get better.
And you can already, I guess you'd say, you could give the illusion to people who are looking for him as well. Like, mate, come on. We all said this when he was going to start. We said he was going to get a decline. We said he was going to lose minutes. He said he was going to lose his numbers. His job wasn't safe. But look at him. He's been doing this already.
It's on the other way.
And it's gone the other way. Like, you could actually sell that. And the point is this. The evidence is there to support the argument as well. It's not like, oh, yeah, bullshit, mate. Come on. What are you talking about? Well, just go ... Look at the box score. And that's what makes it really, really sexy. When you can look at the box score. Look, it's when you look in the box score, there's a lot in store there for you to look and be absolutely happy with, because Gafford has been absolutely rolling. And this is in the past, 2 weeks since the trade deadline has been pretty much who's rolled around. Like, the guy has been a monster, an absolute monster for Dallas. And yeah, we can say that was with Derek Lively out, but he has still been a top 30 player. It's nuts. It's nuts. He's starting, he's off the bench. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was only a season ago where this guy he'd only play 20 minutes and not by, coaching decisions. It was because he couldn't stay on because he fouled at everybody.
Yep.
And credit where credit's due. He's been able to roll, become a little bit more restrained in the way that he defends the rim. And he still gets his blocks and he still gets his bounds. And he is a fairly impressive defensive piece on a team. I love him there. I think from just an NBA standpoint and watchability standpoint, Dallas have made some absolute killings this season.
Dallas has gotten a lot better.
Dallas has gotten
they've gotten a lot better.
Deadline.
Well, even in the offseason, the plan to tank to get Greg Lively in the fold in the first place ended up being it ended up being a masterstroke. And we all hate the whole we're not going to play our, celebrities out there. So our big name franchise stars. And, sorry, guys, we're not going to play Luka. We're not going to play Kyrie. Okay, well, congratulations. You got Derek Lively II back in that deal. For losing some games down the stretch when you weren't really wanting to push in and you'd probably get wiped out in the playoffs anyway. Yeah, pretty bloody good strategy, if you ask me, Malley. And it's worked out for them. And then they've made moves this season. They've consolidated their contracts. They've got rid of guys like Reggie Bullock and guys who are wasting away on their bench. And now they are looking absolutely awesome, just like you are. I think we're done here.
Yeah. Okay.
Deep. I think, mate, I'm good with that too, mate. Thank you so much. And don't forget, everybody, like and subscribe. Get on down below. All of the things for Insight Fantasy Sports right here, getting all your content for the NBA. Take care, guys. We'll catch you soon.